I'm out this election about to get some hookers and blow. If you ain't down to clown, fucking suck it.
Hey there, hi there, and a ho there. It's me, TJ, and this is Shlama Show. Today, I think we're going to continue our CIA deep dive. Yeah, I might as well. Might as well, just because we have so much, so much to talk about. But, first, I think we should do a little recap. So, if you don't know, I have a playlist called the CIA Deep Dive, and on this playlist, we have been going over historical events related to the CIA. I've been trying to keep it kind of in a categorical order, but there is no real, order to these videos. It's mostly just, something that I want to talk about today. In the last few videos, we talked about just the organization in general, very brief, very brief oversimplifications, generalizations, but general ideas is what the whole point of this video is for. I'm not trying to give you any definitive education on anything. We went over James Forrestal, we went over fucking, let's see, I need to pull up my notes real quick. I'll be right back. Yes, I was so glad that I was able to pull up my notes. We went over MK Ultra, Operation Artichoke, the cost of MK Ultra, the point of MK Ultra, the few of the guys behind MK Ultra, Sidney Gottlieb, Paul F. Gaynor. We went over the National Security Act of 1947, how the Department of Defense was established due to the National Security Act. The CIA was established with the National Security Act. We went over how MK Ultra was basically what exactly everyone talked about, how it costed $87.5 billion in modern equivalent. We talked about Operation Climax, and we also talked about James Forrestal and how he went freaking insane as the first big boy, Secretary of Defense, whatever he was. I can't remember. He's dead now, so it doesn't matter. But before we get into all of this, we should get down to brass tacks. Thank you for watching, first of all. None of this is possible without you. I make these videos because I want to, not because of you, per se, but none of this is possible thanks to the support of viewers like you. So I have to ask, if you don't mind, if you don't, it'll cost you nothing, just fucking tapping that smackarino of a subscribe button and that just absolutely decimating that like button. You don't have to. I don't really care if you do. I'm just kidding. I entirely care if you do. No. I'm kidding. It doesn't really matter either way. I'm going to continue making these videos with or without you, per se, because I want to. It just helps when you are there. Thank you, listener. I can't do this without you. And additionally, we have a bunch of new content out, not only on this channel, but on our what we even call it, I guess we call it a sister channel? It's like a co-channel. It's Eli's channel, but it's I mean, this is a community of creators here. On Eli's channel, E-Terrestrial, I said in the last video, I would literally quit calling it Eli's channel. I said on the fucking last video that I would literally quit. But you know what I mean. On E-Terrestrial, we have a bunch of new stuff. We have, of course, our podcast out. You can find the podcast, the Lounge Show playlist on this channel. We have 100+ episodes almost on that. Fuck. Goddamn. So sad. But, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. None of this is possible without the support of viewers like you. Now, with that being said, I think we have to get into our main event today. You know, we have to. Most of the information that we will be finding, thankfully, today will be provided by various people who have been thankfully sending me Wikipedia articles out the wazoo. So thank you. I'm not claiming to be an expert on anything. I am a student. I merely put, I am a student, and we are here to learn. So let's do some learning. Today, I think we said we were going to talk about, our next video would be about Alan Dulles. So that's what we're going to talk about. But I need to do something real quick, so I'm going to be right back. Now that I've pulled up the link, you might ask, TJ, why are you using Wikipedia? Well, I personally donate to the Wikipedia Foundation. I think it is a worthwhile thing, you know, with the free encyclopedia that is Wikipedia. And it's good for little deep dives like this because we're going to be covering a bunch of different subjects. And it generally just helps to have the general idea, the consensus, you know, like we're not trying to be, we're not telling you we're experts on anything, but you know, Alan Dulles is the subject today, so let's get into it. Alan Dulles, born April 7th, 1893, and died January 29th, 1969, was an American lawyer who was the first civilian director of Central Intelligence, DCI, and its longest-serving director to date. As head of the Central Intelligence Agency, during the early Cold War, he oversaw the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, which we will be talking about, the 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat, Project MKUltra, and the Bay of Pigs. The Bay of Pigs being what got Dulles fired by President John F. Kennedy. And if you're a real kook, the Bay of Pigs is also what made John F. Kennedy lose his head, as well as Alan Dulles's. Let's see. He was the 5th director of the Central Intelligence, the first civilian director, the 4th deputy director of the Central Intelligence. He was the deputy director for the Central Intelligence for Plans, and he was born in Watertown, New York. He was a Republican, and he went to Princeton University. Hey! Just like the other guy we talked about. What was his name? Oh yeah, James Forrestal. Hey! Hey, this guy also went to Princeton. What a coinkadink. Dulles was a member of the Warren Commission that investigated Kennedy's assassination, a conspiracy theory suggesting that Dulles and the CIA were somehow involved in Kennedy's assassination, and the potential cover-up have been subject to popular debate among historians. Now let's get into that. Let's get into that. Let's get into that. But first, we have to talk about the other stuff that Dulles was about first. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded that the CIA was not involved in the assassination of Kennedy, although there were some very interesting findings in that House Committee on Assassinations. Basically, the conclusion was that the CIA may not have been involved, but there was definitely something. No direct involvement. This is going to be a theme. A reoccurring pattern, if you will, which is why in the last video we debunked some fake conspiracies because, you know, right observations, wrong conclusions. Right observations, wrong conclusions. Before his stints of government service, Dulles was a corporate lawyer and partner at Sullivan and Cromwell. His older brother, John Foster Dulles, was the Secretary of State during the Eisenhower administration and is the namesake of the Dulles International Airport. Anyone ever been to the Dulles International Airport? Anyone ever been? Anyone ever been? Anyone ever been? Anyone ever been? It's in D.C. 26 miles. Actually, I lied. I flight 26 miles from D.C. I died. I lied. It's a beautiful airport, though. I've never personally been, but I have seen so many pictures of it. It is beautiful. If you go on the Wikipedia article, it shows you a nice little picture of it at dusk, and I'm going to download this so I can put it in the video. Because that's beautiful. If I can remember to do... No, I downloaded it. It's all good. So let's talk about his CIA career, because we really don't need to know about his World War II career. We're here to talk about the CIA. In the 1948 presidential election, Dulles was, together with his brother, an advisor to Republican nominee Thomas Dewey. The Dulles brothers and James Forrestal helped form the Office of Policy Coordination. During 1949, he co-authored the Dulles-Jackson-Correa Bill report, which was sharply critical of the CIA, which had been established by the National Security Act. Partly as a result of the report, Truman named a new director, Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith. Smith recruited Dulles into the CIA to oversee the agency's covert operations as deputy director for plans, a position he held from January 4th, 1951 to August 23rd, 1951. Dulles was promoted to the deputy director of the CIA, of Central Intelligence, second in the intelligence hierarchy. In this capacity, in 52 and 53, he was one of 5 members of the State Department panel of consultants on disarmament during the last year of the Truman administration. After the election of Dwight Eisenhower in 52, Bedell Smith shifted to the Department of State, and Dulles became the first civilian director of Central Intelligence. Dulles played a role in convincing Eisenhower to follow one of the conclusions of the State Department panel report, that the American public deserved to be informed of the perils of possible nuclear war with the Soviet Union. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe that Dulles guy, maybe that Dulles guy might have been onto something. Because even though America had numerical nuclear superiority, the Soviets would still have enough nuclear weapons to severely damage American society, regardless of how many bombs had. It's mutually assured destruction. All it takes is one bomb. All it takes is one bomb. All it takes is one bomb. Remember when they were developing the atomic bomb, how they basically said, like, there is a non-zero chance that every time we use a nuclear weapon, we could literally light the Earth's atmosphere on fire? Just some food for thought. The agency's covert operations were an important part of the Eisenhower administration's new Cold War national security policy known as the New Look. What is the New Look? I don't know. Let's find out. The New Look was the name given to the national security policy during Eisenhower. It reflected Eisenhower's concern for balancing the Cold War military commitments of the U.S. and the nation's financial resources. The policy emphasized reliance on strategic nuclear weapons as well as a reorganization of conventional forces in an effort to deter potential threats, both conventional and nuclear. Oh! This is a rabbit hole in and of itself. Jesus Christ. I think this might be its own separate video, honestly. Oh, you always love reading a fucking, like, article on something, and it's just, like, fucking everything. So I think we're gonna go back to Alan Dulles on this one, boys. Alrighty, back to the lecture at hand. I need to get some water. Yeah, we're definitely I'm gonna keep that New Look tab open. That is a rabbit hole in and of itself. Let's return to Dulles, though, because we have a lot we're talking about in terms of Dulles anyway, so, and we've been at 14 minutes already, so we gotta get to it. At Dulles' request, President Eisenhower demanded that Senator Joe McCarthy discontinue issuing subpoenas against the CIA. In March 1950, McCarthy had initiated a series of investigations into potential columnists communist subversion into the agency. This is known as the McCarthy era. Let's go! Hey, we're time traveling, baby. We were in the 40s and now we're in the 50s. Groovy. Pre-groovy, actually. In 2004, it was revealed that the CIA, under Dulles' orders, had broken into McCarthy's Senate office and fed disinformation to him in order to discredit him, in order to stop his investigation of alleged communist infiltration in the CIA. Now, granted, this is a fucking absurd thing to think, because if you know anything about the CIA and what the CIA does, you would know that they are not exactly the best friends of so-called communists. In the early 50s, the Air Force conducted a competition for a new photo reconnaissance aircraft. Lockheed Martin Corporation's Skunk Works submitted a design called the CL-282. And Edwin Lane presented the proposal to the aircraft for the aircraft of Dulles. This became as the U-2 spy plane. Let's get a picture of that. Download. Hey, where's our Dulles? Where's Dulles? No! Oh, we lost the page. Damn it. We'll be right back. Now, if you know anything about the U-2 spy plane, the U-2 spy plane is still in service to this day, but it was introduced in 1957, and it greatly enhanced the CIA's ability to monitor the Soviets. The aircraft was eventually entered with the Air Force, and the Soviets shot down and captured a U-2 during Dulles' term as CIA chief. Dulles is considered, by many, as one of the essential creators of the modern United States intelligence system, and was an indispensable guide to clandestine operations during the Cold War. He established intelligence networks worldwide to check and counter Soviet and Eastern European communist advances, as well as international communist movements. And it's for this reason why anyone to the left of Ronald Reagan thinks that he's probably not the greatest guy in the world, because, well, if you know what any of those few sentences meant, well, we're about to talk about those things, because the next thing is the coup in Iran. Let's go! Alrighty. Let's talk about the Iranian coup. The 1953 Iranian coup, also known as the 28-day Mordad coup d'etat, was the U.S. and British-instigated Iranian army-led overthrow of the elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Mohammad Mossadegh. I was wrong, I'm sorry. I don't care. In favor of strengthening the monarchical rule of the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi on the 19th of August 1953 was one of the significant objectives. Strengthening the monarchical rule of the Shah was one of the objectives. It was aided by the U.S. under the name TP Ajax, or Operation Ajax. In the end, it was also known in the United Kingdom under the name Operation Boot. So let's get down to some of the facts. The dates from the 15th and 19th of August 1953. The location was Tehran in the imperial state of Iran at the time. And the result was the overthrow of Mossadegh. The insurgents, the House of Pahlavi, the Shah, the U.S., the UK, and the government of Iran, and the commanders and leaders, Mossadegh, Hossein, Fatemi, and Riyah, and a bunch of the U.S. folks. And the units involved: the Imperial Guard, the Imperial Iranian Army, the Royal Supporters, the CIA, and MI6 versus Mossadegh's supporters and the Iranian Imperial Army. And the casualties, about 200 to 300 killed, covertly. Most of this is covert shit. Hey! Mossadegh had sought the audit the documents of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, a British corporation, now known as BP, to verify that the AIOC was paying the contracted royalties to Iran and to limit the company's control over Iranian oil reserves. Under BP's refusal to cooperate with the Iranian government, the parliament voted to nationalize Iran's oil industry and to expel foreign corporate representatives from the country. After this vote, Britain instigated a worldwide boycott of Iranian oil to pressure Iran economically. Initially, Britain mobilized its military to seize control of the Abadan oil refinery, and then the world's largest, but the Prime Minister at the time, Clement Attlee, opted to instead to tighten the economic boycott, while instead using Iranian agents to undermine Mossadegh's government, judging Mossadegh to be unamenable, and fearing the growing influence of the communist Tudeh. UK Prime Minister Winston Churchill and the Eisenhower administration decided in early 1953 to overthrow the government. The preceding Truman administration had opposed a coup, fearing the president the CIA would set. You know, the president of going to a country that you don't like and then coupping them. Which surely, Truman, surely, his fears were just nonsensical. Surely. Anywho, the U.S. government had been considering unilateral action to assist the Mossadegh government as late as 1952. The British intelligence officials' conclusions and the U.K. government's solicitations to the U.S. were instrumental in initiating and planning the coup. Following the coup, a government under some guy was formed, which allowed some guy, the Shah, to rule more firmly as a monarchy. He relied heavily on the U.S. to support his hold on power. According to the CIA's declassified documents and records, some of the most feared mobsters in Tehran were hired by Iran to stage pro-Shah riots. The coup resulted in the reinstatement of the Shah's authority, as he continued to rule Iran for the next 26 years until he was overthrown in the glorious Iranian Revolution of 1979. In 2013, the U.S. government formally acknowledged the U.S.'s role in the coup by releasing a bulk of previously classified documents that showed that it was largely in charge of both the planning and the execution of the coup. According to Stephen Kinzer, hey, a name that comes up again, the operation included false flag attacks, paid protesters, provocations, the bribing of Iranian politicians, and highly ranked security and army officials, as well as pro-coup propaganda. The CIA is quoted as acknowledging the coup that was carried out under, quote, CIA direction and as an act of U.S. foreign policy conceived and approved at the highest levels of government. In 2023, the CIA took credit for the coup, contradicted by previous scholarly assessments that the CIA had botched the operation. Let's talk about another one. You think there was just one? Think there was just one? No. The 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat deposed the democratically elected Guatemalan president, Jacobo Arbenz, and marked the end of the Guatemalan Revolution. The coup installed the military dictatorship of Carlos Castillo Armas, the first in a series of U.S.-backed authoritarian rulers in Guatemala. The coup was largely the result of a CIA covert operation codenamed PB Success. PB Success. From the 18th to the 27th of June 1954, resulted in a rebel government in overthrowing. Now, why did they do this? Well, you can watch a Salmonella video for more on that, but we're going to explain a little too. The Guatemalan Revolution began in 1944 after a popular uprising toppled the military dictatorship of Jorge Ubico. Juan José Arevalo was elected the president of Guatemala's first democratic election. He introduced the minimum wage and near universal suffrage. That sounds pretty nice. Hey, Arevalo was succeeded in 1951 by Arbenz, who instituted land reforms and granted property to landless peasants. Hey, that seems really nice. Guatemalan Revolution was disliked by the U.S. federal government, which was predisposed during the Cold War to see it as communist. The perception grew after Arbenz had been elected and formally legalized the Communist Party. The Communist Guatemalan Party of Labor. There was also the fear that Guatemala's independence of the U.S. could inspire nationalists wanting social reform throughout Latin America. That sounds about right. The United Fruit Company, whose highly profitable business had been affected by the softening of exploitative labor practices in Guatemala, engaged in an influential lobbying campaign to persuade the U.S. to overthrow the Guatemalan government. U.S. President Harry Truman authorized Operation PB Fortune to topple Arbenz in 1952, which was a precursor to PB Success, and it failed. Dwight D. Eisenhower was elected president and promised to take a harder line against communism, and his staff members, John Foster Dulles and Allen Dulles, had significant links to the United Fruit Company. The U.S. federal government drew exaggerated conclusions about the extent of communist influence among Arbenz's advisors, and Eisenhower authorized the CIA to carry out Operation PB Success in August 1953. The CIA armed, funded, and trained a force of 480 men led by Carlos Castillo Armas. After U.S. efforts to criticize and isolate Guatemala internationally, Armas's forces invaded Guatemala and, backed by a heavy campaign of psychological warfare as well as bombings and a naval blockade. The invasion force fared poorly militarily, and most of its offenses were defeated. However, psychological warfare and the fear of a U.S. invasion intimidated the Guatemalan army, which eventually refused to fight. Arbenz unsuccessfully attempted to arm civilians before resigning. So what happened to this Arbenz guy, you might be thinking? You don't want to know. You don't want to know. You don't want to know. Castillo Armas rounded up and executed between 3,000 and 5,000 supporters of Arbenz. Nearly 4 decades of civil war followed as leftist guerrillas fought a series of U.S.-backed authoritarian regimes whose brutalities included a genocide of the Mayans. You think we're done? You think we're done with this? Hey, we're talking about Dulles today. We got a lot to talk about Dulles today. I wish we didn't. But we got one more event. I just gotta, make sure things are Gucci. Unfortunately, Dulles' story basically ends with the disgrace known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. So I think we're gonna spend the next amount of time talking about that. The Bay of Pigs invasion, sometimes called Invasion de Playa Garón or Bastilla de Playa Garón, after the Playa Garón, was a failed military landing operation in the southeast coast of Cuba in 1961 by the Cuban Democratic Revolutionary Front, consisting of Cuban exiles who opposed Fidel Castro's Cuban Revolution, clandestinely financed and directed by the U.S. government. The operation took place at the height of the Cold War, and its failure influenced relations between Cuba, the United States, and the Soviet Union. During the date of the 17th through the 20th, hey, 420 baby, April 1961, the Bay of Pigs, the belligerents, the Cuban and DRF, the United States, and Cuba, resulted in Cuban forces, 176 killed, 500 wounded, and in the U.S., 818 killed, 306 wounded. So overall, the national militia lost 2,000, and the U.S. lost 4. So, in 1952, Fulgencio Bastilla led a coup against the president, Carlos Prio, and forced Prio into exile. Prio's exile inspired Castro's 26th of July movement against Batista. The movement succeeded in overthrowing Batista. The CIA didn't like this, so almost immediately they began planning the overthrow of Castro, which the U.S. approved in 1960. It was these initial plans. By the first act would be the embargo of the island, which still exists to this day. The 1960 embargo is still in fucking place. This led Castro to reach out to its Cold War rival, the Soviet Union, after which the U.S. severed diplomatic relations. Cuban exiles who had moved to the U.S. following Castro's takeover and formed the counter-revolutionary military unit, Brigade 2506, which was the armed wing of the DRF. The CIA funded the brigade, which also included approximately 60 members of the Alabama Air National Guard. Bro, imagine you're a dude in Alabama and you're like, you get a letter in the mail and you're like, guess what? You're going to Cuba, baby. Oh, God, I'd be killing people, I swear. I'd be losing my mind. I'd be like, you telling me I got to go to fucking Alabama? Nah, ain't no way. Wait, did I say Alabama? I mean, you gotta tell me I'm going to Cuba? I mean, I'm going to Alabama. If I have to go to Alabama, Jesus Christ. I mean, the same still applies, to be honest. If I have to go to either Alabama or Cuba, oh my God. Over 1,400 paramilitaries divided into 5 infantry battalions and 1 paratrooper battalion assembled and launched from Guatemala and Nicaragua by boat on the 17th of April, 1961. 2 days earlier, 8 CIA-supplied B-26 bombers had attacked Cuban airfields and then returned to the U.S. On the night of the 17th of April, the main invasion force landed on the Bay of Pigs, the Playa Garón, I don't know, the Bay of Pigs, where it overwhelmed the local revolutionary militia. Initially, Jose Ramon Fernandez led the Cuban Revolutionary Army counteroffensive. Later, Castro himself took personal control. You know you fucked up when the fucking big boy cigar-smoking Giga Chad Fidel Castro, who could slam dunk on your ass like he was Doc J, has to go, you know what? You just made this personal. Now I'm the commander. You know, Fernandez, you were a great guy. You were a good guy, but I gotta take over, man. I gotta do it. I'll do it myself. John F. Kennedy decided to withhold further air support. The plan, devised during Eisenhower's presidency, had required the involvement of U.S. and naval forces without further air support. The invasion was conducted with fewer forces than the CIA had deemed necessary. The invading force was defeated within 3 days and surrendered on the 20th of April. Most of the surrendered troops were publicly interrogated and put into prison with further prosecution. The invasion is considered by literally everyone, including this article, a fucking failure. The Cuban government's victory solidified Castro's roles as a national hero and widened the political division between the formerly allied countries, as well as emboldened other Latin American groups to undermine U.S. influence in the region. It also pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union, setting stage for a very, very important event that happened a year later, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which will be not a video because no. Maybe, who knows, maybe. But not this one, because this one's about Alan Dulles, and if you don't know, this is the thing that got Alan Dulles kaputs. So now that we talked about the Bay of Pigs, we gotta go back to Mr. Dulles, because this resulted in his fucking dismissal. During the Kennedy administration, Dulles faced increasing criticism. In August 1961, following the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Algiers push against Charles de Gaulle, Dulles and his entourage, including Richard M. Bissell Jr. and Charles Gable, were forced to resign. Kennedy presented Dulles with the National Security Medal at the CIA the next day. November 29th, the White House released a resignation letter. He was replaced by John McCone. So this ends our story for today. We talked about Alan Dulles, at least a little bit. So I think from there, our next video will probably be about the Cuban Missile Crisis. My name's Tanner. This has been the CIA Deep Dive. I hope you all have a good one. Bye!